The bunker where Hitler ranted and raved in the final days of the conflict is long gone. It was here that Hitler took his own life. With the Russians swarming all over Berlin, he sat with Eva Braun, who he'd finally married the day before. As he bit down on a cyanide pill, he simultaneously shot himself through the head. His body was carried out into the bombed-out garden, doused in petrol, burned, and then buried.
And Langer is spot on in this case. I mean, this is a suicidal personality. He's not somebody who's going to simply give up, lay down his arms and say, okay, let's have an armistice.
One of the most fascinating predictions to me is the manner in which Hitler would bring his end, namely that he would suicide, which was an uncanny psychoanalytic intuition. If you take this notion of the empty self, which has built up this compensatory, grandiose, messianic facade, what happens when that facade is shattered? It's totally intolerable. And this is really, I believe, what Langer was conjecturing, that if his dream of total glory, of total power, were to fail, and that facade of grandiosity was to shatter, underneath this, that empty self would emerge, and that was intolerable for Hitler, and he had to kill himself rather than be confronted by this total shame and total humiliation.
The fate of this top-secret document is shrouded in mystery. We do know that it reached the highest levels in the British Foreign Office, but there the trail runs cold. Langer was absolutely certain of the value of this profile and the profiling of political leaders in general. In fact, he went so far as to claim that things might have been completely different if the Allied leaders had the report before Neville Chamberlain tried to appease Hitler when they signed the Munich Peace Treaty in 1938.
I would like to believe that if such a study of Hitler had been made years earlier, under less tension and with more opportunity to gather first-hand information, there might not have been a Munich.
Munich gave Hitler a chunk of Czechoslovakia in return for peace. But Chamberlain completely underestimated Hitler's appetite for German expansion.
We regard the agreement signed last night as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
Historians are far more cautious about the value of this profile and the whole discipline of psychobiography.
There are so many other factors that had to be brought into this. There are so many other political, diplomatic, military and strategic calculations. So much of this is entirely unpredictable. The war in 1939, for example, Hitler thought he was just going to be fighting the Poles. All along he thought he wasn't going to fight Britain and France. And suddenly at the last minute the crisis becomes a crisis of European war, not just a crisis of war between Germany and Poland. So even understanding better what makes Hitler tick would be very difficult, I think, for either the people around Hitler to act differently, or indeed for the British or the French or the Poles perhaps to have acted differently as well.
Dr. Gerald Post has no doubts about the value of psychological profiling.
And my strong belief from the very early days in founding the Center for the Analysis of Personality and Political Behavior is our leadership needs nuanced political personality profiles of every important world leader, but particularly those leaders who really threaten us.
Walter Langer's work predicted the end of Adolf Hitler. But he had no idea that he'd started a whole new discipline in the CIA, the science of the political profile.
We must understand the leaders we're contending with. You can't deter optimally a leader you don't understand. And to relegate, be it a Hitler or a Joseph Stalin or a Saddam Hussein to a crazy, evil madman, really degrades our capacity to deal with them optimally, because we're not thinking about what pushes them, what makes them tick.
The government of the United States agrees. Since Dr. Post founded his unit, the CIA has profiled every important world leader, up to and including Saddam Hussein.